Alrighty, hello everyone. Welcome to the Protect Your Construction webinar, brought to you by Apex Construction Law, Benetics AI, and the Construction Association of Michigan. My name is Patti Bronson, and I'm the Event and Education Coordinator here at CAM. A little bit about us. We've been the voice of Michigan's construction industry since 1885, and through connecting professionals across the state, from contractors, suppliers, and service providers. We use networking events, advocacy, and education. And just a little prerequisite note, for any questions, please use the LinkedIn comment section on the event page, and we will definitely get to those towards the end. And now I'm going to turn it over to our presenters, Jason Tooker from Benetics AI and Tyler Phillips of Apex Construction Law.
Go ahead, Jason.
Yeah, awesome. Thanks, Patti. Thanks,
Yep.
Tyler, for being
Thanks,
here.
Patti.
Thanks for everyone that's joined us here on LinkedIn Live, something we've never done before. So, I've been a CAM member now, along with Benetics AI, just over a couple of months when we went live with our launch here in Michigan, in Detroit. Met Patti, and has been nothing but I have nothing but positive things to say about being a CAM member and really, getting us in front of a lot of you that are out there listening today. And Tyler, then I ran into him at a different event, and I showed him what I'm going to show most of you today, or all of you today. And he said, wow, this is something that my clients could really use. It might actually cut down on his billable time, but at the same time, he said it would make life a lot easier. So we'll get into that just in a minute. But Tyler, why don't you introduce yourself?
Yeah, so my name's Tyler Phillips. I'm one of the owners at Apex Law. I run our construction and litigation departments. I've been a construction litigator for just north of a dozen years at this point. And as Jason said, I ran into him at a CAM event and started talking about this and talking about the challenges I face as someone who's getting in at the end of a project, and what happens when documentation is lacking. And the idea is, like we all have tools in our toolbox, the AI tools now to make your documentation fast, simple, easy, and thorough are really helpful. And I'm going to be presenting a bit of how this will be helpful in the risk management litigation context later on. So Jason.
Awesome. Thanks a lot. So yeah, kind of the question that comes up with a lot of construction is, where can we use AI? Like, everybody's trying to jump on this bandwagon, and there's a lot there, and not a lot of the tools are ready. Not a lot of the tools are simple to use. And it's like there's whole innovation teams being formed at large construction companies all the way down to small ones. And what we've done at Benetics is we've answered one question, and we've done it really well. And that is, what if reporting wasn't a burden, right? Like, really think about that. What Tyler's going to talk about is because reporting gets missed. It gets forgotten. It isn't done in real time, so it's a little spotty. And what we're doing here today is just showing you it can happen. It can happen pretty much on its own with exactly the processes that you have in place. So I'm going to jump right in and talk about kind of two areas where we're producing documentation. And one, if you look at the left-hand side here, you're talking about anything from a task list. So this would be a lot of times you go and create your punch list. You do a walkthrough, and inspectors go through, or a foreman goes through, and you just need to say, hey, there are additional items that we have to add to somebody's plate. And you can create it quickly by talking to the phone. I'm working live on my phone here and the app. And then later we'll talk about the report side of things. So let's jump right into a task. What I have here on the phone is tasks, plans, reports, and documents, right? So you can upload as many plans as you want. And I think this is usually where people will start, is they've got a PDF, the drawings, and they go in here and they can zoom right in. And so I'm on my phone, I'm out in the field, I'm acting maybe as foreman, and I come across maybe an issue. So I'm going to go ahead and just touch the plan here after I zoomed in and create the task. And this is where the magic happens. You've got this little microphone in the top. And so I'm just going to kind of go live like I'm in the field. Yeah, this is RFI for some an electrical panel that we're supposed to be putting in this closet. And we need to do a different placement of it because we've got some mechanical work in behind it. There's a lot of duct work there. We're going to have to move it up. I would say I'm going to give this to Tobias, and this is urgent. So please get back to me today. But I think to do it, we're going to have to move it up 2 feet or possibly move it over to the wall adjacent to it, or give me any other suggestions that you have. And then all I did was click on the checkbox at the bottom to tell it that it's done recording what I'm saying. And it's using AI in the background to fill out that task. And you can see it quickly comes up in a matter of seconds. It says who entered it, myself, when it's due, hopefully today. It assigned Tobias to it, marked it as urgent, and gave it some of the suggestions that I talked about, right? The other big thing that you'll hear a little bit from Tyler is photo documentation. So now you can also take a picture, you could mark it up and say, hey, we just need to move this up maybe 2 feet, put that in that task as well, and you're done. It's already in real time back in the office. Tobias is getting pinged at the same time. Anybody that's been added to this project essentially can see it. And maybe you want to switch languages as well. Like, oh, here we got something that just came through in the feed. Got it. Tobias let me know that he got it. So there's a live feed. You can go right to where it's at and take a look. And if you want, you can actually go in there and switch to any other language. I've got Spanish as my backup kind of default here. So you could switch it to, French or Italian. Very big deal if you're have a lot of bilingual users. And vice versa. They could speak to it in Spanish and then just translate it back in the office. So an added little feature as well. But ultimately, in seconds, you've got a nice little RFI that's going back to the office. That's our first example of simple documentation using voice AI. So I'm going to kick it over to Tyler again, and he'll get into some of what he's seen in the field and in practice at Apex.
Yeah, so my role here today is really to give the why. It's great to have documentation, but why do we have documentation? And although I like to do risk management with clients and I like to get it on the front end because that saves everyone time and money, unfortunately, there are things that just end up in litigation because people can't agree. So what's important when we get there? Well, documentation. Documentation is the memory of the project. I probably couldn't tell you what I had for lunch 2 weeks ago, but if I kept contemporaneous documentation, I could. So what are the 3 essentials that we have with good documentation? Well, you have to keep daily logs, site diaries, meeting minutes, updates. That's important. It catalogs the site. So 2 years from now, if you're sitting in a deposition, you know what it is. What's important about those records? They're made contemporaneously by people with knowledge. These are the people who know the job. Having your field people take this contemporaneously via this app is actually really helpful, as opposed to going up to maybe a project exec who hasn't seen it. There's a lag time in there. It's not as efficient. It's not as accurate. So keeping it contemporaneously with that timestamp documentation. I don't know if you saw when Jason was giving the presentation, but it's all timestamped. So you can tell exactly when this was made. And again, you always want to include stuff like daily reports on workforce equipment, weather, and progress, which is efficiency. Inefficiency claims are some of the hardest claims to litigate when you get in because there's so many moving parts and it's hard to tell when we were being efficient or we weren't because partially documentation isn't upcapped. So if we can move on to the next slide real quick. So what happens when we have good records? When we have good, thorough documentation, not only are we able to help later on when we get to litigation, we're able to anticipate claims and prove claims, right? Because if we keep thorough documentation going on, we can see where the problems are. We can see where our inefficiency is, whether it be an RFI like we just saw, where it's, hey, we need to move this and I need a quick answer. Or if it's an inefficiency claim, hey, we can't work because the guys in front of us weren't done. We're going to see that in a little bit. You'll be able to anticipate that. And as a result of being able to anticipate and prove or substantiate your claims, you're going to reduce litigation in the future. One of the examples I've used is during the height of the COVID pandemic. I had a client, a general contractor I worked with closely. I joked I was a second project manager. I was on the phone with the project manager every day. We had a very difficult owner. And in that case, we knew there was going to be some claims. So they took the time to have us help them document the job. So my job is basically, I called myself the IT desk, but I was a lawyer, was to help them make sure everything was documented going in. So what happened is at the end of that job, what might have been litigation, yes, they had more legal costs on the front end, maybe $20, $30, $40,000, but we were able to resolve a 7-figure claim without litigation with a meeting with the owner, because we came in with all of our documentation and said this, and this. And oh, by the way, we kept it all contemporaneously. And they thought, well, they've got their ducks in a row. And we were able to negotiate a deal. Now, inversely, what happens? These are 3 examples of things I've seen or that are published cases where people don't get their claims because, hey, they didn't document it. Weather delay is a classic one. Weather days are always argued about, right? How many weather days do I get? Was the weather actually that bad? Okay, well, in one instance, time extension denied because the contractor couldn't produce the daily job reports. So they had to rely on weather data that wasn't nearby. There's only so many weather stations. Guess what? You record the weather data, you take a picture of the 1.5 feet of snow that's sitting on your work surface. It's a lot easier to document that you couldn't sit to start the job that day. Inefficiencies. That's another one that is generally very difficult to prove. And so in this instance, they had rail traffic interrupting deliveries. And he just said, hey, we had rail traffic interrupting deliveries. Well, if you're taking a shot of the train, or you're adding into a report as it happens, train came by, it was 20 minutes, couldn't get truck on site between 11:53 and 12:15. Okay, that's really hard to dispute because it's happening as it occurs, and you've got an electronic trail showing that you were recording it real time. Delay of others. There is a lot of moving parts to a delay claim. You have to reconstruct, and a delay, in order to be a delay, has to be what's on the critical path, meaning it's the next thing that had to happen for the job to progress. And there is a lot of moving parts, and if you don't track and show this was the thing that was preventing us from working, again, hey, the mechanical guys aren't done, we want to get in there with the electrical, and here's the snapshot of the site showing we don't have anywhere else but we can work right now. That really helps show that critical path. So how do you prove a delay claim? This is kind of a bottom-up method. The measured mile is kind of the gold standard, and everything goes up there. We don't need to, what you need to know about these is really what you do depends on how good of a documentation you have. A measured mile is the gold standard, as I said. So what does that do? It compares productivity in a non-impacted period with an impacted period. Well, how are you able to do that? Well, first you have to document how much work you're getting done in a non-impacted period. You got to have the measured mile, the baseline. And then you can take that and compare it to what you have done in an impacted period. And if you keep that contemporaneous documentation, hey, you're going to be able to show that. In a jury method, documentation is limited. You're really just asking the jury to do what's fair. And everyone's version of what's fair is going to be different. It's not the preferred method. Then you have the total cost and modified total cost method, which again, almost come down to a bit of a question of fairness that's hard to objectively document. So in the total cost method, what was the actual we were going to do on the job? How much money did we actually spend? So what did we anticipate we were going to spend for labor hours? What did we actually spend? That's great. It shows you there was an inefficiency, right? But it doesn't necessarily show you that the inefficiency was the result of a particular event. And that's the problem with that. That's why we want our gold standard measured mile. The other thing that good documentation does, no, you can go to the next slide. Another thing that good documentation does is it saves you money on the back end with litigation. So what practically happens in every case and every lawyer's struggle is getting the documents from the client and getting them in an organized manner. Everything that the client does to organize and make documents efficient to review saves money in the long run because there's not an attorney or an expert witness going to do that. So for instance, there's software now that lets you put all the documents up and then you can word search them and try to search for keywords. Well, in Benetics and other AI tools like this, those stuff are already OCR, meaning they're searchable, right? So I can search for electrician delay or mechanical delay and boom, get all my documents there. So what does that mean? It means there's less labor in the lawyer's office, less labor with the expert, and these costs aren't outside of what you would see for a delay claim. A complex delay claim with a lot of moving parts can very easily cost you $150,000 in fees. Someone's got to reconstruct the project from scratch. We weren't there. All we have is the documentation and your word. And so the better your documentation is and the more organized it is, the less time the legal team and your experts are going to have to spend on that. And I've seen this in action where we've had clients who were very well organized. Their daily reports were very thorough. And as a result, they were able to save a substantial amount of money because our expert, our forensic scheduling expert, came in and was able to create an as-built schedule very easily. The other thing that's important with this is that the documentation, when it's coming through software like this, has metadata. And that means you can verify when it was made, how it was modified. I recently had a case where someone was keeping handwritten daily reports due to the way they were dating them. They accidentally put 4 or 5 daily reports on the same day, but they were meant to be for different days. Well, it was clear they were going way after the fact and creating daily reports for weeks or months ago. And we were able to discredit that witness significantly by saying, well, how can you know this is true? But if you have everything metadata, everything's timestamped like it is here, well, then there's no questioning when it was made and there's no questioning its veracity. So this is all very, very helpful stuff. And I think Jason's going to show us another example of how this can be accomplished using the app.
Thanks, Tyler. That's awesome. A little above my head at times, but definitely good information. So yeah, I'm going to just get into another demo. This is an interesting picture here, actually. This is one of our users, and nobody wants to be the first to use new technology. And so we'll let you know, although this is new to Michigan and me bringing it to market in the States, this is something that's been around for now 2.5 years, and it's iterated and gotten much, much better. But we have over 220 companies that are utilizing Benetics AI. And again, it's really since this AI portion over the last 6 months has been implemented that we have just seen it take off. So it's really exciting, and hopefully we can take off here in Michigan and in the US as well. And it's a new way. It's a new way of documenting. Instead of, like Tyler mentioned, handwriting things or even typing things up. I mean, some of these reports would take 20, 30 minutes and it gets done late at night or it gets done on the weekends. I mean, I've heard these stories from the field and specifically from a lot of foremen and superintendents. So you get the full reports. It's easy to use. And the key that we've talked about is it's protecting the work that you're doing and protecting the time that you either spent or time that you did not spend due to somebody else maybe not being out of your way yet. So I want to show that example. There's a lot of different examples that we could get into as far as daily type reports. The daily report that I'm going to get into, I've created is fairly simple. You see on here, I have quite a few reports. Whatever you have, we can put in here, and that's what's going to use the AI to fill out those fields. I'm going to use the daily site report here. And again, I'm just going to use that kind of magic as I add a new one. You've got the microphone down there at the bottom. And we're going to say, we're going to go live here. So I'm talking to it. Yeah, we had a pretty good day. Weather conditions were good. It was sunny. This morning when we arrived at 8 a.m., it was 65 degrees, a high of 74 degrees today. We were able to get most of our work done. We did the electrical rough-in on 3 of the 4 walls, and there was a total of 5 guys there. No, actually, sorry, we had 6 guys, counting myself. And we worked from 8 a.m. until 2 p.m. We did have a scissor lift on the premises as well as a forklift. But I will add a note of there was a delay in the fact that we couldn't get to the north wall and we couldn't get to the ceiling because mechanical was not done and they were occupying the space. And ultimately, we were cut 3 hours short of what we had planned on working that day. So they're saying they're going to have it done tonight. We'll be in here early tomorrow morning then to finish up the rest of the work. So again, just kind of giving your daily summary. You can have more fields in there if you want, incident reports or if any accidents happen, that type of a thing were reported. And it just goes through and it fills it out. and I can take some photos. So I think in this case, a photo would be like the work that you did complete, right? You put that in there. But then to Tyler's point, maybe even more important is the reason that you couldn't get your work done is that north wall isn't completed yet. So you weren't able to do the conduit or anything else. You can also add a signature. This has come up. This is a feature that was added. If we're able to move fast and add new features pretty quickly. So if there are other things people want, we want to hear from you. And just like that, I'm saving it. And it's instantly back in the office on the web version. I could send it from here as a PDF. It's got the electrical rough in 3 to 4. Looks good. Couldn't access. There's other notes, what we had. And I can go ahead and share that link with anybody in my contact list, or I can export it and save it as a PDF. And so we also have added that availability to send it to anyone that maybe doesn't even have Benetics on their phone yet at this time. So it's just a static PDF copy of it. So just another example of where we're at, what we're doing with our report writer. And we'd love to hear what reports you have, what else you want to see in there. We're getting quite a list just from all the different users that we have, but everybody's got their own unique reports as well. So I challenge you get the app and download it and try it and tell me if it isn't cutting it down by at least a significant percentage. 70% is what we've heard in people that we've talked to and users that are very happy. It's just much faster to use. I already talked about the languages there, and Tyler talked about how everything is versioned and searchable. You put as many plans up there as you want. And the best thing about it is that it's running in minutes. You just download the app and start plugging away. So on that note, I'm going to kick it back over to Patti to kind of bring it home.
Yeah, so now is going to be the time for some questions and answers, Q&A portion. Right off the bat, it looks like we got a couple. Does Benetics integrate with Procore?
We do have integration with Procore, so tasks and reports can get pushed back to Procore. That's coming up more here since there are a lot of Procore and Autodesk. I mean, we have an open API, so we're able to integrate back. And, I think long-term goal is really being the only tool that people have to use in the field so that they aren't getting multiple versions of Procore or all these other tools that general contractors are kind of requiring. As long as the GC gets what they need from you and the subs, then I think they're going to be happy with it. And we're actually headed to Groundbreak, Procore's big event down in Houston. They've kind of invited us, and we'll be down there for 3 days in October. So we continue to work with Procore because we know they're one of the leaders in the area and in construction in general.
Awesome. And while we're still on the Benetics, what is the cost of it, Jason?
Yeah, so that's something sometimes the sales you're afraid to answer, but we are not, because it's pretty inexpensive. It's $20 per user per month. And what I've seen as best practice so far is getting a team that's willing to say, yeah, we'll do this on this project. So it might only be 4 or 5 users. That's fine. And we just go forward like that. And then as soon as people start to really use it and adopt it, they love it. And then they spread it out to the rest of the company. So
Awesome.
be straightforward.
All right, I'm going to bounce over to Tyler. Let's see, how much documentation is really needed, and are apps like this going to be sufficient?
There's no such thing as too much documentation for an attorney. So how much is needed is as much as you can possibly get. Documents, especially documents that are contemporaneous and have proof that they were done at the same time, are the gold standard of evidence. And these apps are going to be sufficient in that. I mean, what you need to be able to do is tell the who, what, when, where, why, and how, right? It's the stuff we learn in elementary school. And that's all reporting is doing. And I know Jason and I have talked about, people don't get into construction to do reports. They get into construction to build things. And what I think is great about these apps is they let the people who are building things build things. And this is what this does. And I think these apps are sufficient because they produce a nice piece of evidence that I can use either to negotiate a claim with an owner, or if I have to go to trial to present to a jury. So yes, I think they're great.
Awesome. And then it looks like there's one for Cam. Will you be hosting more events like this? As the event and education coordinator, I can confidently say yes. We are always open and looking for new suggestions on webinars, even if our office building is in Bloomfield Hills, if that's convenient for anybody. We do host a lot of trainings here. And Tyler is actually going to be putting on a Construction Law 101 seminar. It's a one-day boot camp here at the CAM office on September 25th. So Tyler, I'm not sure if you wanted to speak on that.
Yeah. So this is ideally meant for your project team and maybe even some of the C-suite level people to give you the ideas from a practical standpoint, what you need to know about construction law in order to protect yourself. This isn't meant to be a dry academic class. This is really practically focused, and I'm drawing a lot of the topics from what I see. How do we deal with delay claims? How do we deal with changes? How do we document and manage our problems ahead of time? How do we deal with stuff like the Michigan Building Contract Fund? How do we manage cash flow and keep that all within the bounds of the law? And if we know that, ideally, we're able to see problems before they happen and address them before they get expensive. My goal with this class is to put myself out of a job, frankly, which is not a bad thing. So, because it means people are getting along.
It looks like we got one here at the bottom. To Tyler, what kind of documentation mistakes do contractors most often make that end up hurting them in court?
Sure. There's twofold on this. One is the no documentation, right? It's the handshake. What I hear it called, and the words that burn in my ears are field adjustment. Oh, no. We made a field adjustment. It didn't work that way. Well, if you just snap a picture and send the RFI and say we're proposing this solution, I don't have to worry about undocumented field adjustments. The other one, and I think the biggest one, is the overworked superintendent or project manager who does all their dailies on the weekend. And it's clear that they're not accurate. It's clear that they're not contemporaneous, and the credibility factor is hugely impacted. So I think it's those two things: is keeping things real time and keeping them at all.
Awesome. All right. Well, I think that wraps things up. Jason, do you have anything else you would like to add?
No, just thanks again to everyone. This was our first, live stream on LinkedIn. So hopefully it's going well out there, and I think it'll be out there for some time so people could share it with others. If you were listening in today, definitely, if it's of interest, hit me up, but also share this video with others there on LinkedIn. Thanks to
Thank
you.
you guys
Thanks,
for your
Patty.
time.
Thanks, Tyler.
Yeah, thank
Thank
you.
you.
Awesome.
Thanks.
All right. Thanks, guys.